and the track to score his first superspeedway victory for Newman Haas. 2 weeks ago in New Hampshire, he won the fiercest mile fight in memory to edge out Paul Tracy and surge ahead in his quest for an IndyCar championship. Mansell is the lord of the IndyCar domain, but the season is not yet over. Consider the young gun of the circuit, Paul Tracy. Tracy has scored 3 times this year, every time on a road course. Here last year at Road America, Paul took his first IndyCar pole. Then, trying for a quicker lap yet, found disaster instead. Paul was not injured and was ready to lead the pack toward the first turn on race day. In the early going, he fought with teammate Emerson Fittipaldi and won. It was then that his youth showed through. He pushed too hard. Today, the story is the same. A devastating crash Friday and the pole yesterday. Will he ruin Mansell's championship dream? Or could Emerson Fittipaldi now second in the points? This is Emo's kind of track. In '88, he took his second win here. Last year, his experience on road courses propelled him to the front as he started a streak that nearly gave him the IndyCar title. Can Emo begin a similar challenge here and now? Will the skillful, patient stalking of Fittipaldi track the Lion down? The run for the PPG Cup now continues at Road America. From the beautiful Road America circuit at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, the IndyCars and the Texaco Haviland 200. We have so many stories to tell today. We begin with Gary Gerald.
Paul, one of the amazing stories surrounds Paul Tracy and how he earned the pole position. Consider on Friday in a practice session, 180 miles per hour down the backstretch through the kink, something apparently failed in the rear suspension. The car nose first into a barrier. It sheared off the entire front end. But thanks to new rules this year that have strengthened and lengthened the footbox area, this Nigel Bennett-designed Penske held up beautifully. Tracy escaped any serious injury. A crash recorder on hand chalked up 44 Gs. That's an astounding number. 44 times Tracy's body weight on impact. Here's the steering wheel that was in the car. Notice how it's deformed. The deformation here is where Tracy's helmet against the restraints of the belts actually went forward and impacted the wheel. More astoundingly, he comes back the next day in the backup car. He knocks Nigel Mansell off the provisional pole, denying Mansell a precious bonus point toward the championship. Now, the problem for Paul Tracy here in the cockpit is to get comfortable because he's far from 100% physically. He greatly stretched all the muscles in his neck and shoulders. He has bruises on his knees, legs, ankles. It's difficult to break. He's got 200 miles to go. He's already astounded his crew by qualifying on the pole after that dramatic accident. Now he's ready to try to astound us all again and go the 200-mile distance. Paul?
So Paul Tracy will very definitely be a focus for the remaining 5 races of the season. He could be a spoiler in Nigel Mansell's potential championship. As we take a look at the points, Mansell is certainly the dominant power right now. But let's remember that most of his wins this season have happened on ovals. And the remaining races in the series, 4 of them are road courses. And Nazareth, while it's an oval, they still set up as if it were a road course. So Nigel Mansell very definitely has some problems yet to solve. For more on the Newman Haas team, let's go trackside and Jan Beekes.
Well, Paul, it's a very special day for Newman Haas. It was 10 years ago today that Mario Andretti scored that first victory for Newman Haas. And over that 10-year period, they've scored 42 victories, more than any other IndyCar team. Right now, Nigel Mansell sits in the second position and Mario Andretti in third, partly because Mario is here testing and they found the balance on this car that all the other Lola teams have not been able to find. Now, in the morning warm-up, they were only third and sixth, respectively. They'll have to see if they have that speed in the race because this team wants to celebrate that anniversary with another victory.
50 laps, 200 miles lie ahead. 29 cars have qualified for this race, a wonderfully full field. As we take a look now at the starting grid. Tracy, who takes his second pole in a row here after a savage crash on Friday. Alongside is Nigel Mansell, the PPG point leader on the front row for the 8th time this year. In row number 2 to the inside is Mario Andretti, a 3-time winner on this 4-mile road course. And Raul Boisel, who has 3 runner-up finishes in the 1993 campaign. In the 3rd row to the inside is Emerson Fittipaldi, the defending champion of the Texaco Haviland 200. And Al Unser Jr. with his best qualifying effort since the Indy 500. In the 4th row to the inside is Scott Goodyear, looking for his first win since last year's Michigan 500. And Robbie Gordon, his 2nd best qualifying effort of the season. In row 5 is Mark Smith with a 4th straight top 10 qualifying effort for a freshman driver. And Bobby Rahal, twice a runner-up in this classic event. In row number 6 is Ari Luyendyk, who has 7 top 10 finishes on this demanding course. And Roberto Guerrero, his first start here since 1990. And looking in the 7th row as we continue our look at the grid, Scott Brayton and Christian Danner is back in the Indy cars. Eddie Cheever and Teo Fabi in the 8th row. In the 9th row, Stefan Johansson and Mike Groff, who is driving the Lola, not the Ray Hall Hogan here today. In the 10th row, it's Danny Sullivan and Brian Till. Row 11, Hiro Matsushita and Willie T. Ribbs. In the 12th row, Robbie Buell and Adrian Fernandez, both rookies. The 13th row, Olivier Briard and Marco Greco. Row 14, Ross Bentley, the Canadian, and Buddy Lazier. And alone in the 15th and final row, it is Jeff Wood. Well, the engines are very close to start as they make their final preparations for the run at Road America. ESPN's coverage of the Texaco Haviland 200 is brought to you by PPG, world leaders in automotive finishes. By Suzuki, your Suzuki motorcycle and ATV dealer has the ride you've been waiting for and the financing to get it. And by Haviland Formula 3 motor oil. Add more life to your car. Back at the beautiful Road America circuit, 14 turns, a little over 4 miles, the longest in the IndyCar series. Now let's go back 2 weeks ago to a 1-mile oval. They are still talking about the run in New Hampshire. The last laps of that race were some of the best we have ever seen in the IndyCars. The start saw Mansell and Boisel battle as Marco Greco spun, bringing out the caution. Nigel moved to the front. Paul Tracy fell to 4th, and Fittipaldi was barely in the race. But it wasn't long before the leaders were running in traffic, and Tracy was past Boisel. Tracy was now in what he calls the zone, his fastest moments. Soon, he was all over Mansell, and then quickly around and into top spot. At the same time, Fittipaldi was making up for a poor qualifying and carving his way through the field. But trouble is always close at hand on a mile. David Coudrave crashed. Nigel went back to the lead of the race. Now, the Penske pack chased Mansell through traffic. Fittipaldi went left. Tracy split right and then darted inside, taking the lead. Mansell quickly pulled up tight and began chase. Later, as Boisel tried to claw his way back into the fight, traffic and turbulent air sent him to the wall, and a DNF for only the 2nd time this year. The stage was now set for Mansell and Tracy as they made their final stop. Paul roared past the Newman Haas pit, and Mansell struggled with a bad right front tire. The Lion would fall back to 3rd place. Still, it wasn't long before he flew past 2nd place Fittipaldi. And then it was on to challenge Paul Tracy for the lead. The outside pass was beautiful. Mansell took the lead and the race and celebrated his 40th birthday, showing the world just how young he is. We'll all be talking about that run in New Hampshire on the mile for a long time to come. But, Derek, are you surprised at how Mansell's been performing on ovals?
Yes, I think maybe yes would be the answer. I think he's also surprised himself, not at the sheer speed, but I think at the consistency of speed he's able to show on these ovals. Now, can he win the championship? Absolutely. But I think his main contenders all year have been the two Penske drivers. But it's ironic that miscues by the Penske drivers, the crashes by Tracy in Phoenix and Milwaukee, and Fittipaldi's crash in Detroit, robbed that team of valuable championship points, making Mansell's task a little bit easier. But make no mistake about it, the Penske boys are still his main opposition. But he is not convinced that he can beat these Penske cars in the last 5 races of the year, which will open up a great championship fight for us all to enjoy.
Well, the engines have started and the field has just begun to roll away. 2 laps to the green flag at Road America before a record crowd here, maybe an all-time record crowd for the state of Wisconsin. We welcome race fans worldwide now to our coverage here at Road America. The Texaco Haviland 200, Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. The field moving on the parade lap now. The look back from Nigel Mansell's car. One of our onboard cameras positioned on these Indy cars here this weekend. Danny Sullivan, not only an onboard camera, but Chevrolet engine technology gives us these data readouts throughout the race itself. Also onboard camera on the nose of Bobby Rahal's car. Many of the drivers say this is the closest view you can have to what it is like in the cockpit of the car. So the field now circulating around as they prepare their cars, take a look at the situation on the track. A cloud layer lies overhead. So the field is ready. And we have now just a little over a lap and a half to the green flag. Indy cars all prepared as we welcome our global audience here today. And the track here, a little over 4 miles around, 14 turns, Derek.
And it has almost everything here. Easy low-speed corners, demanding medium-speed corners, and some scary high-speed. Lots of passing opportunities here. Speeds along the straight in excess of 195 miles an hour in qualifying. Here is one of the areas you hold your breath. The carousel. If you make a mistake here, you're in deep trouble.
Of course, this leads to a very fast section of the course down to the kink, and it's just around that bend that Paul Tracy had his problem on Friday, but still came back to take the pole. Now on the line here today, as we take a look at our race analysis, it is a 50-lap, 200-mile event. The race record 126 miles an hour, and Emerson Fittipaldi is looking for 2 in a row here, or an overall 4 wins, which is unprecedented at Road America. The real key factor there is that at lap 16 is really a critical point, the only lap for a fuel window if you want to make this a 2 pit stop race, and fuel is absolutely critical in the run at Road America. Speaking of fuel, let's go to Jan Beekes.
Well, that's right, Paul, and as you said, fuel is always critical here at Road America, but you know, it's not the fuel this year that's in this tank, it's the fuel that's in the race car tanks. All the Lola competitors were up very late on Friday night, tearing their cars apart, looking into the fuel cells. The crews were up to the wee hours of Saturday morning. That is, most of the Lolas are not picking up all the fuel, Paul. They had to make sure